Hey guys, I am Big and Scary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay from Team Echo, this time featuring in our bottom right hand side, nfteam Mate, our blue Protoss, and his opponent from Team Echo is HTOMario, a new acquisition, I suppose, to Team Echo. Mario is in very high Masters, so high in fact that he's versing a Grandmasters. Mate is in low Grandmasters, and so both players are kind of teetering on that razor sharp edge. The difference between Grandmaster and Masters, frankly, the skill level is very, very slight until you get up, to the top 50, and then it's just skyrockets from there on out. So Protoss versus Terran, don't be fooled by the disparity of leagues. It's going to be a fantastic game, especially because Mario comes incredibly highly recommended, and you don't get to Grandmasters by being a chump, so I'm sure Mate's pretty good too. We are on Newkirk City, one of the newer additions to Heart of the Swarm, and by the way, we're totally on Heart of the Swarm. It's a very fun map. It definitely favors airplay just because of the very small gap skipping between the two bases, making it very close by air, especially when you consider the third, which is it's kind of tucked away there. The third is very exposed, but then you have the fourth with the destructible debris, and then a nice medium-sized choke leading down to the common ground. So yeah, I mean, your third's ultimately very exposed, but it's a very short walk, so it's easier to defend than most. So I like this map. It really favors the macro play. It allows you to kind of take bases as small stepping stones, allowing you to do it a little bit more comfortably than normal. Mario is throwing down that early gas with a barracks immediately thereafter, not incorporated into the build. Tells me that it's not going to be any sort of shenanigans. He's not going to use that for a super early barracks timing or anything like that. Otherwise, he would have wanted to deny the scouting. Newkirk City has a nice long walk distance, and it's interesting to see that Mate sent his probe out so incredibly early, and this is why he's taking a massive risk. He's throwing down a Nexus first before pretty much anything else except for a pylon. Balls of steel right here, and that's why he sent out his probe so very, very early. Oh, and look at that, throwing out a pylon right next to the barracks, forcing the reposition if it is going to be using the refinery, and that's what he was worried about. He just wants to deny the add-on possibility from the barracks. Little does he know that that's not ultimately what that barracks is for. The barracks is going to be blowing some of that gas on the first Reaper, which is going to be coming out in a relatively short amount of time, and that's a great decision for Mario, especially if you consider the fact that he has not scouted that expansion has actually taken place. And that Reaper is going to have a field day because he's going to have twice as many mineral lines as normal for him to harass. Gas has been taken for Mate, and he's working on that first gateway, so he's gonna be pretty far behind as far as attacking units are concerned. But again, due to the huge rush distance, due to the fact that the Reaper was scouted by the probe, I don't foresee Mate to have a lot of trouble with this Reaper. I think ultimately Mario's just going to use this Reaper for some fantastic scouting, and he's going to get all sorts of information. Cybernetics core just now going up, but that second gas has not been grabbed for Mate, and so that's pretty telling. That just tells you that he's going to be focusing on the economy, if the Nexus first build wasn't already a big clue that he's going to be focusing on the economy. A SCV coming out probably just to take the watchtower, but you can never be sure. Could be that he's going to be throwing down a bunker. We already see a bunker being thrown down on the low ground right next to that Nexus, very aggressively positioned. Sometimes you see it tucked off in the corner, but that ultimately opens up your mineral line to a run by those SCVs. So it's six in one hand, half dozen to the other. I personally favor the bunker placement used by Mario here. Reaper doing some nice scouting as well as kiting of that Zealot. Again, checking out that Vespene Geyser, no double gas, breathes a sigh of relief. He's going to have no problem at all getting his own macro mechanics up and running. That Zealot might just maybe go down. No, he does not, in favor of keeping the Reaper alive. He drops down to the low ground, and those shields from the Zealot will recharge probably faster, or about the same rate, as the Reaper gets up his own health factory into Starport. A 1-1-1. Will that Reaper reactor be used for the factory to double produce Widow Mines or Hellions? Only time will tell. It's probably more for the defensive posturing. He wants to get out plenty of Marines so that he can deal with any sort of gateway pressure that can be coming out of Mate. Remember, he only scouted that first assimilator. We know that the second assimilator has gone up, and that the chrono boosts are going down on that warp gate. Tech second gateway and third gateway being added on for Mate. Forge sits silent for now, but why would you get it if you're not going to use it? Oh, I don't know. Could be that he's going to be throwing down a photon cannon like this one in the mineral line that I totally missed. It could be something else. Parallel universe, let me know. What is this? A fourth gateway. Excellent. Fourth gateway, totally going to be scouted by that Reaper. Now in pristine health. He's probably going to be in significantly less than pristine health due to that photon cannon. Yes, he does die and he takes a tumble. I love the new physics. That's fantastic. Starport and factory, neither of which are using that reactor. Very peculiar. Oh, very telling armory being thrown up. That is absolutely fantastic. Is this going to be a Hellbat drop? I don't know, because of that recent nerf making it so that the Hellbat drop's a lot less effective. They take up a lot more room. This is far more effective, sending out 2 Widow Mines with a plethora of Marines, especially considering the fact that he's got the mineral line to abuse, but with that photon cannon being thrown down by Mate, he's really taking the time to defend all sorts of his economy, and that's an absolutely fantastic decision. It looks like it is indeed a mech play coming out of Mario. I didn't want to say anything, but the armory just kind of spells it out for you, especially due to the fact that he's taking care to control that reactor. This is very interesting choice, is to get the starport with the tech lab. Obviously, you can get up all sorts of units later on. The Raven is probably the most versatile just because of the medevac. It's nice to have the medevac with their healing ability for those Hellbats, but the static detection offered by the Raven is very, very useful, especially when you have a cumbersome army that's probably being scouted by an observer against the Protoss. Speaking of an observer, the photon cannon is going to make it so that these Widow Mines really can't position themselves into the mineral line, making it so that they're ultimately not as successful as Mario really wants. He's going to get a nice scout out, maybe be able to take down a single stalker, but beyond that, he's not going to be able to get anywhere near the mineral line, do any damage to the economy. Speaking of the economy, 42 over 47, so Mate's a little bit ahead, but remember those mules, they definitely even the score. It'd be interesting to see if he leaves any of these Widow Mines behind. There's no way that Protoss can have any mobile detection out, especially considering the fact that we have not seen a robotics facility. We do see a large amount of gateways, and what is this going to be? Templar Archives out where you're searching that storm up. Not a hell of a lot of gas though saved up for Protoss, so we're not going to see too many of those High Templars, and when we do see them, I doubt very much that they'll be morphed into Archons. It'll just be for that storm strictly. Charge also being researched for those Zealots, and it's not going to cause too much consternation for Mario because he's got plenty of AoE to dish out on those Zealots too if they decide to get frisky. Barracks still producing add-ons, but those add-ons are ultimately destined for these factories. More than a handful of those factories are remaining silent though, even though we have 2 more being added on. Finally the tech lab's going to get attached. Finally we're going to start seeing siege tanks. Finally we're going to see Mario having an army that's a little bit slow and cumbersome, but ultimately very effective at maintaining massive map control. I mean, you get that siege tank line out there with Newkirk City. There's really only 2 avenues into and out of the left and right side of the map, and it's right by these Zelnaga watchtowers. You aggressively position your siege tank line, and you basically control half of the map, no problem at all. And that's very, very powerful whenever you consider the possibilities offered by the siege tank line. You can lock down your third for your opponent right here, and if you do that, you can also lock down the pathway to the fourth. And you're in a lot of trouble if you lose a healthy chunk of the map control to a Terran. So Mate's going to have to take care not to let Mario get up that critical number of siege tanks, and if he does, maybe we're going to see a lot of Void Rays, which is very much in vogue right now for Protoss. It just demolishes anything that's armored. Third being taken for both players, but in opposite locations, as well as a medevac coming up with that Hellbat drop that I was talking about, how terrible it is. It's not terrible. Mario's going to show us how incredibly effective it actually is. Barracks also going off for a barracks drop if he wants to be kind of obnoxious in his scouting. A couple of the Marines being aggressively positioned just to scout out that the charge is done and those Zealots are coming out in force. Like I said, just a single High Templar being added to the mix. We're probably going to see 3 or 4 more of them in relatively short amount of time, just because that third has been taken and the gas has not been tapped at that third. That's very interesting. You'd think that the gas income would be, very high priority. There goes another High Templar getting a nice feedback on the medevac. Ultimately, the photon cannon cleans it up. 7 workers killed in the favor of Mario, but ultimately, I mean, he's going to lose both of these Hellbats too. So, not really a wash, but not as effective as you could assumed if that medevac had managed to pick up those Hellbats after they had rebuffed all the probes, then he would be able to reuse that. He'd be able to do some more pressure in the back door. So Mate definitely handled that very well, as you would expect from a Grandmasters. Some more High Templars being added into the mix. Their AoE is going to be very effective with the stationary siege tanks, but you got to be careful. I mean, the Hellbats are not the only thing that's going to eat those zealots alive. Lots of Widow Mines have been added on, and the missile turret in the 4 will take out any observers that could come by and actually detect those Widow Mines. So this is going to be a very peculiar fight. I expect we're going to see a lot of dead zealots and not much else, just because those Widow Mines are so incredibly powerful with all of their AoE. A Hellion run-by going off to the north side of the tower, and some frisky Widow Mines very aggressively positioned, actually pretty much watching every avenue into the bases except for the far north one. Mate actually checking out both of the expansions to see if a fourth has been taken, and I think Mario had his eye on one, and well, actually constructing another CC, even though one's also being lifted off. Where did that Hellion run-by go? I think it just got taken care of actually right here, which is peculiar. I mean, why did they turn around? I don't know. Maybe he was wanted to keep an eye on the zealots more than he wanted to do any damage to the probes that could be done into the top right corner. Speaking of the top right corner, assimilators have been tapped, but only one worker on both of those geysers, so the gas income is still going to be pretty much hurting Mate, and you can actually see that by way of workers composition. Nice clutch storm going down on those Widow Mines. They're very weak right now, forcing the pull back. Good unit control from Mate, immediately identifying that those Widow Mines were going to burrow, and they only get 1 or 2 volleys off on the main clumps of zealots before he sends in a single suicidal zealot, forcing the pullback of pretty much all the Widow Mines, not really doing much damage, only escaping with 1 or 2 health. Another Stalker goes down due to the psych out from Mario, keeping one of the Widow Mines there, but more importantly, he's taken that 4th in the top left corner, and the 3rd from Mate remains untaken. He's got a pylon there. I think he's thinking about taking it in a short amount of time. Nice scan from Mario in the top right hand corner. However, bear in mind, he has not scouted the 3rd in quite a long time, and that means he might assume that the 3rd has been taken since he scouted the 4th, and ultimately he might be feeling a little bit more insecure than he actually is. He's actually very well in hand with the economy, 82 over 73, and that's not even factoring in the mules. Look at that income for the minerals, and you can just pour all of that into the Hellbats. Very intimidating force, especially when considered how very mineral rich Mate's army was. He has so many of those zealots, and they're going to be absolutely chewed alive. Actually, where did those zealots go? Did the Widow Mines really cripple that force so very much? It's difficult to see because Mate's force is spread out in so many different corners. A nice pylon wall right here, maybe a gap up north. I think the south is definitely tight, and I think the Hellions are going to be checking on that in a very short amount of time. This is definitely a sacrificial run-in with these Hellions. Yeah, the north side is kind of gapped open there, but that's okay. A Colossus is there, as well as a High Templar could throw down a storm. No, it gets sniped very quickly. As I was saying, Mario is actually 100% supply capped, 196 over 200. So he needs to get rid of these Hellions so he can get out something a little bit more cost-effective. Upgrades-wise, he's looking in very strong shape. 3+1 for the armor count, just the +1. We have the +2 armor, but no weapons for Protoss. So he's winning that battle, and he's definitely already capped, so he can spend so much on any form of infrastructure. Look at it, throwing down a 2nd command center. This guy's probably going to become a planetary fortress also. Weird positioning for that planetary, but that's okay. Well, we don't care. He's very full saturated. It's very nice. It's going to be incredibly difficult for the Protoss to crack that very tough nut at the 5th. The Immortals are going to be doing quite a big favor. Look at so many Immortals. They do so much extra damage to the armor of the planetary fortress, so they'll be able to chew through that very quickly. However, the Hellbats, the siege tank, this whole composition will have a difficult time with the Immortals. I just think that because Mario is totally maxed, if he can force Mate to actually walk into the siege tank line fully deployed, we'll see even that Immortal count kind of plummet. 4 more Immortals on the way. Wow, that is absolutely a fantastic choice. This is a great choice too. A fusion core on the way for Mario, as well as a plethora of more starports. So I think we're going to be seeing more and more of those Hellbats go by the wayside, and with that freed up supply, we're going to be seeing some battle cruisers on the way. Void Rays already on the way, and like I said, they do extra damage to armor, so man, there's so many different thought processes right now going on. We have the Raven with that static detection, and it's just pretty much the only one. The only major weakness I see with Mario's army is that there is literally zero anti-air. You have the auto turrets from the Raven, and you've got the Widow Mines maybe being able to fire up if they get lucky, and that's it. That's absolutely it. Look at that. The Observer, even though it's detected by the Raven, has no fear from anything except for the auto turret. So that is just, it's a glaring defect to this Terran mech because there's no Thors mixed in here. Oh no, and Mario's force gets caught completely off guard. Half of it instantly being incinerated, 167, but with such a massive bank, and now with the infrastructure in place to mass produce those battle cruisers, 4 battle cruisers immediately being thrown down with 2 more Vikings on the way for Mario, and he gets maxed immediately. Oh man, those battle cruisers are going to chew through the Immortals too because they attack so very quickly and they're not affected by the hardened shields. Here comes an Immortal drop with 2 Warp Prisms, a 3rd one in tow. They get instantly chewed apart by the Widow Mines. Wow, what fast reactions for Mario to have them burrowed like that. We see some Zealots being warped in on the backside. This entire siege tank line gets chewed away, but remember that we had 5 battle cruisers on the production tab a short time ago. Some of them will be out on the field. We have 5 more Thors coming out, so that anti-air is finally being added into that Terran mech. But will the composition be Thor and battle cruiser? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it's possible that he's going to devote 100% to that air, but no, he's utilizing the infrastructure you already have in place, all those factories. Why would you let them remain silent, especially with the massive bank that Mario has right now? So he's utilizing pretty much every unit producing structure he has back at home to mass produce kind of a happenstance army. Plenty of those Immortals remain alive, and with a single planetary fortress up here on the top left, whatever reinforcements that are coming from Mario need to arrive very quickly. Speaking of quickly, those battle cruisers are so fast now. Oh my goodness, but just 2 battle cruisers added into this mix, some battle Hellions on the low ground just to absorb some of that damage, and I think Mate has had enough, even though he's maxed also. Turning around, just exchanging a handful of volleys against all those Hellions. Hellions go down pretty much immediately, but with such a small amount of anti-air from the Protoss also, he has to retreat. Only 3 Stalkers added into this mix, and he does not want to sacrifice his Colossus, and more importantly, the Immortals to that. The Colossus aren't going to be doing much regardless, but the Immortals are definitely a siege tank line cracker, and he doesn't want to sacrifice them, uselessly. He wants to exchange them for a siege tank line. 2 Immortals, I'm going to assume. Yeah, Immortal drops going on in the 4th location for Mario is going to be able to swing down here, do a pretty good amount of damage. Some missile turrets in place doing a little bit of damage to the Warp Prisms, but not forcing any of them to go down. The 4th is now, I guess the 3rd is now being sieged. And wow, so very quickly just demolishing all those supply depots, not supply capping Mario because he's already done that with his excellent macro mechanics. Speaking of macro mechanics, Mate has taken down the destructible debris. It looks like he's taking another base, and with that, he only has a single place to expand. Mario also only has a single place to expand, and it looks like he's making motions like he really wants to expand here too. And with that, the battle lines have been drawn. We haven't seen what I was talking about with those siege tank lines basically locking down half of the map, but that's okay because both players have massive armies, and no one wants to engage unless they're sure it's going to win. And with in-game compositions like this, there's no chance that one person knows for certain that they're going to come out on top. Yamato Cannon research being researched right now. The +3 weapons for ships and vehicles have already been completed. But we have the +1 air on the way also. Speaking of +1 air, for Protoss and some Tempests. Oh man, Tempest is going to be absolutely fantastic against those battle cruisers, but not much else. You start mixing in the Vikings, they can take out the Tempest with relative ease, and we already have Thors out, which will be doing quite a lot of damage to them. Also, here comes the big push. Those battle cruisers just shelling down so much fire. Instantly, all the Void Rays and Stalkers go down, and with a clutch warp in on the backside, more Stalkers, everything on the ground, all those Thors have been instantly chewed apart by this plethora of Immortals, but the battle cruisers' numbers are just too severe. Only 4 Stalkers remain alive, and it looks like the battle cruisers are going to have to waddle after the Immortals, which are going to be waddling down into all the expansions that Mario has. Mario can afford to lose 1 or 2 of these expansions. He can't afford to lose a lot of his infrastructure. His battle cruisers definitely need to be working overtime in order to catch up with these Immortals, which are going to be chewing away. A very fortunate orbital command gets to lift off. If that had been a planetary fortress, it would have been just demolished demolished. Two planetary fortresses sit to the top right, and the infrastructure sits to the bottom left. He doesn't want to allow him to get into this natural where those very, very important starports with their tech labs sit, which are mass producing the battlecruisers. 5 more on the production tab, 4 more Tempests on the production tab. The Immortals having to walk directly underneath the battlecruisers, taking so much damage, but they're so resilient. Oh my goodness, only a handful of them go down. You switch over to the resources lost tabs. Look how incredibly even that is at the 27-minute mark. That's just showing you how incredibly back and forth this is, and it's battlecruisers versus Tempest is going to be the next fight. I fully expect this to go heavily in the favor of Mate, but because of the diverse infrastructure back at home, the fact that he's got a massive economy, a nice bank, and he's going to be banking every ounce of money that he makes for the next good 5 minutes before the next fight happens, Mario's going to be able to remacro with whatever unit composition he thinks is going to counter this Immortal Tempest composition, and I think it's going to be something like a lot of Vikings, and oh man, what type of mech counters the Immortals, because they're totally that. It could be just Vikings and battlecruisers, because that would really just destroy everything that Mate has out, as long as he keeps the battlecruisers alive while the Vikings do their thing. 2 Ghost Academies going down, very cool, nice nukes, because those Immortals are very, very slow, allowing the nukes a little bit of extra time to go down, and also so many different mineral lines. It's pretty much impossible to check every single mineral line to save all your probes, especially if you throw down 2 of them at a time. A 3rd Ghost Academy on the production tab. Terran vehicle ship weapons number 3 going to be finishing up. So Mario's battlecruisers are in full and prime life. They've saved up quite a lot of energy. Some of them have enough for that Yamato cannon. Remember, the Yamato recently had a buff to the energy, so they only cost 100 energy to throw them down. The Tempests have been exposed. Now is going to be pushing in a very paltry ground army. Oh, and the feedback goes down, robbing so many of those battlecruisers with the possibility for a Yamato, but some of them still get them out, and the Yamato, oh, the battlecruisers have turned and are fighting the Stalkers instead of the Tempest, and the Tempest just doing so much damage against Massive, targeting down those battlecruisers. Mario loses his entire fleet in seconds, and Mate is 190 over 200, and then Mario's down to 140. That is just absolutely ravaging loss in the favor of Protoss, and he's going to be taking full advantage of that, moving off with his Immortals, which can just decimate anything on the ground, and his Tempest, which can just decimate anything in the air. This is looking incredibly grim for Mate. What can he do? Well, he's got a lot of economy. He can mass produce Ravens, nice. Some battle cruisers too, which are going to meet a similar end. Some Widow Mines, but none of these is the absolute answer, because this unit composition is so incredibly strong, but it's slow. It's very slow, and it's buying Mario a lot of time to get out the units that he needs. The Ghost Academy is out. 3 ghosts on the production tab. They'll be able to throw down some EMPs, deal some damage to the economy, but Mate really just doesn't want to press the advantage that he has. He doesn't want to start sieging this expansion in the top left corner until he is in the perfect positioning of his units. A nice spread on the Immortals, but again, he's just withdrawing. I don't know why he's withdrawing. There's no counter pressure in any of his bases. He's just nervous because of Mario's, I don't know, Mario hasn't shown a heavy drop play. He hasn't shown the heavy harassment. I mean, he's suicided in a handful of Hellions, but it wasn't enough that would justify Mate pulling back when he had such a clear advantage. Mario's got to be breathing a sigh of relief, because he's remacroed now up to 177. He does have a handful of Vikings with 3 more on the production tab. I think Vikings will allow him to take back the air. He doesn't need as many battle cruisers as he's got Vikings, just because the units on the ground really aren't supplying a lot of anti-air. We haven't seen a lot of Stalkers. We've seen a lot of Immortals, and ultimately those Immortals need to die, but the death priority of those Immortals is significantly less than the Tempest, and the Vikings are going to be able to do a number on those Tempests very cost effectively. 2 medevacs on the production tab, probably to drop off those ghosts so that they can do some nukes on the back, and I'm very excited about that possibility, especially because the attention span of both players has got to be spread so very, very thin. The Tempests are just darting in and out of the top side. They really want to get in there and start doing some damage to either one of these expansions, but I just don't think that Mate can justify risking it, because his force is so very slow. The second he moves out, he knows Mario's going to be pushing in with a more mobile force, because let's face it, there's not a lot that's not as it's not as slow as the Tempest and the Immortal mix. Here comes Mate moving up to the top side, trying to intercept Mario as he's exposed by taking down that pylon. And will Mario pushing to take out that Nexus. No, it looks like he's going to be pulling back. Wise decision. There's nothing there to really risk it for. Oh, here comes the Widow Mines. They've got to burrow. There goes the Storm, but the Widow Mines dart out of it. And the Storm, oh my goodness, the Storm. So many Storms. The Widow Mines die almost instantly. Oh, wow. 2 whiffed. What are they called? Hunter Killer missiles right on top of the Colossus. Absolutely ridiculous. So many of those Tempests remain alive. 13 Vikings on the production tab right now, while 16 of them still exist. So many defense drones absorbing so much damage from the Tempest, really allowing Mario to pull back before he took too much damage. Here comes the nukes. He's dropping all 3 of them on the same place. You gotta be kidding me. 3 more back at home to take out that infrastructure. Just instant map awareness from Mate, realizing that it was this Nexus that was getting nuked, and oh my goodness, such massive damage to the infrastructure back at home. That Stargate has 8 health, and it's just unpowered, just seconds away from producing that last Tempest. That is absolutely hilarious. Mario just dropping so many nukes, and Mate realizing which one it was for him to withdraw. Fantastic. It was probably, let's be honest, the medevac that was hovering above those ghosts, and the fact that some of those ghosts weren't cloaked, which kind of cued him in on that. But it's still excellent map awareness. Mario dropping down a huge number of mules to quickly strip mine the expansion from Mate, realizing that he's probably going to have to rely on a war of attrition more than anything else. Here comes another drop off with those ghosts. Do they have the ability to nuke? They do have 6 nukes, dropping off another round. Those 2 nukes should be able to clean up that Nexus. Oh, but the huge number of Vikings are doing a huge amount of damage to the number of Tempests. They're just getting decimated. Only 3 of them remain now. All the battle cruisers have gone down, however, but Terran is taking back the air. He's got 13 more Vikings on the production tab, but Mate is only producing 2 more Tempests. Mario needs to realize that the number of Vikings that he has out right now is enough for him to retake air. He doesn't need that number anymore. He's 5 of them now on the production tab, but I think the other 10 have already been produced. 6 more nukes because they've just been so incredibly effective at just decimating the economy back at home. Mate unable to re-macro, only producing a single Tempest at a time. He's really just in a bad corner right now. He needs to do something. He needs to make something happen right now. So Mate's pushing forward. He's probably going to be able to take out this expansion, but let's be honest, not a huge loss there. Here comes the counter push. Those Vikings that have been re-macroed are not only going to have a field day with the Colossus, but also the Tempest. The Stalkers that remain alive are going to have their work cut out for them trying to clean up this huge number of Vikings, but there's not a lot of ground damage being dealt at all for Mario. But now that the air support is completely gone, Mate's going to have to make some sort of miracle happen with these Stalkers, especially with the Widow Mines underfoot, rapidly approaching their cooldown. The Vikings land, help to clean up the last Immortal, and it looks like the Stalkers are going to have to retreat. The last 3 ghosts are calling down another round of nukes. Oh my goodness, there's just so much damage being dealt by Mario. It was absolutely a fantastic play to get out there because it requires so very little time to set up that infrastructure, but once the infrastructure's there, the harassment potential is massive. Dropping another nuke down just to bother him here at this expansion. More importantly is the fact that we don't have a single Stargate producing anything right now. The production tab is completely idle. There's so much money right now for Mate, but he's just not producing anything because he has so very little unit producing structures. He's mass producing the gateways up in the top right corner. He's got a single Stargate there with a robotics facility, but he's not going to be able to keep up with the massive infrastructure that Mario has kept untouched. He did that clutch hold right here, keeping that starport up, keeping all these starports up with their tech labs, allowing him to just retake the sky and take out those Tempests, which Mate had invested so very much with. The huge number of Vikings instantly ravaging anything in the sky, and now that Mario has fallen back on his original infrastructure of those Thors, in conjunction with the Widow Mines and Hellbats, he's got an unstoppable army that Mate had the perfect unit composition to deal with. He had all those Tempests out, he wasn't going to have a problem. But because Mario sabotaged that infrastructure, it was just, oh, he's in such bad shape. There goes a massive storm, but that's okay. Mario doesn't care. He's got a huge supply lead throwing down even the point defense drone to take care of some of the Stalker shocks, pushing Mate back into his ravaged main base. It's completely mined out. He's got a little bit of infrastructure there, but more important to that is the economy, which is located in the top right-hand side. Even the third is pretty much completely mined out, and Mario knows it. The place he needs to attack is in the top right-hand corner, not the bottom right. And I think that that's what Mario wants to do, is he's just positioning his units here. He's got some reinforcements on the way, a handful of ghosts and some Thors to do just a little bit of damage. Here comes the counter push from Mate. I think this might be his last desperation push, but the Thors are just way too much. The plethora of nukes going down on one of the few remaining mining bases. And will this fall? No, the probes do indeed get transferred out. Excellent map awareness by Mate, just being able to check out every single one of his expansions in relatively short amount of time to keep those guys alive, but still massive damage being done to that Nexus. Another counter push from Mate, but every single one of these pushes, his bank is rapidly being depleted, and the infrastructure back at home just doesn't allow him to re-macro to the point that Mario can. 170 over 185. Yeah, Mario has this in the bag, and it was just 100% him dictating the pace of the game, realizing that he can afford to pull back. I think Mate had a huge advantage whenever he decided to pull back with those Tempests. I don't understand that thought process. I think it was just him being nervous with what Mario had, worried that he was going to get out-positioned and have like a suicide run by, since his Tempests were so far afield. And that's a reasonable worry. That is definitely a reasonable worry, but I think it might have cost him the game, because that was such a clutch move for Mate to pull back like that, allowing Mario to re-macro. And now that Mario is re-macro, now that he's got out that really just nice unit composition and just destroyed that infrastructure. Every time I come down here and I look and I know that this place used to be full of glory and beauty, there were so many people there, and it's gone now because of the nuclear fallout. Oh, it's just terrible. You switch over to the economy, both of them are actually faltering, but that's okay for Mario because he's got a massive bank. Not so much for Mate, because he's only got 200 minerals to his name, trying to produce more immortals, trying to get up a last ditch hurrah. I think we're going to see a suicide push, probably going to be relying a great deal on the storms, but with so many Thors out. And remember, those Thors cannot be feedbacked anymore because they no longer have an energy bar. They don't need energy because they don't have those 30mm strike cannons. Those High Templars really not going to be doing quite a lot of damage to that. Here comes the push from Mario. Is going to be taking out one of the few remaining expansions from Mate. With that goes pretty much all of his economy. A small little drop coming in here from Mario, but not going to be doing much. In reality, once those Thors reach that base, it'll be doing quite a lot. Actually, this number of Thors has definitely fallen by the wayside. I wonder where Mario's main force is, because he's got a lot of supply and not a lot of forces right here. Is it in ghosts? Has he split it up? Here comes the counter push from Mate. Pushing in, he'll have no problem dealing some damage to this Thor, probably taking out that ghost, but not in time for the nuke to drop. Oh, he misses it. There goes the nuke. Oh, there goes the nuke. And with it is shattered Mate's dreams of taking this base. Oh my goodness, what a fantastic match. What a fantastic match. I mean, what is there to say? There was so much going on there that I honestly can't even tell you from start to finish where, if there was a game-winning move. I think it was very important that Mate pulled back. I think it was incredibly important that Mario went for those ghosts, went for those nukes, went for that like tier 3 harassment basically. And then the just constant change of unit composition, Mario not being super attached to the mech play, switching up to the Vikings, Mate realizing that battle cruisers are bad and that you need Tempest to deal with them, and doing that and just instantly being able to throw down the infrastructure needed, and then using that infrastructure later on. Mario realizing that, okay, now's not the time for Vikings, I don't need that anymore. What I need are Thors. I can switch back to Thors because I already have that massive Terran factory infrastructure already up. I can use that. I was using it for siege tanks earlier. No, I need Thors now. That's okay. And that's okay. Mate realizing that, you know, he needs one of everything. He had gateways, he had High Templar, he had robotics facility, he had starports, and he was using every single asset of the Protoss army, and he was using pretty much every bit of money on the Protoss side of the map. It was incredibly well won. It was incredibly tight. Just the match wise, I can't tell you how fantastic this game was. This was banging. You guys are banging. Thank you for watching. If you have a comment, you could leave a comment, especially about, you know, what you think the Protoss was thinking whenever he pulled back. A better unit composition that he could have used, a better unit composition that Mario could have used. Basically anything. And if you guys like it, feel free to subscribe. Team Echo is absolutely fantastic. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Big and Scary. Bye.